I get lots of great questions every day. So in this video, I am going to answer a whole bunch of them. So the first question is from Brent. Brent says, what was your inspiration to get into photography? Any photographer you look up to? I don't know. I've always just had a camera with me, even when I was just a tiny child. I do look up to many, many photographers, including many of you. If you've shot something different or against the grain, and if you take chances, I look up to you. The next question is from Jari. Jari says, have you had one about editing yet, especially skin, eyes, and so on? There are so many great editing videos out there. I'm not nearly as good an editor as I am a photographer. Jack at Faded Focus Photography makes some great videos. Here's a video actually where he edited one of my self-portraits. JP asks, image sharpness, RAW versus JPEG, achieving super sharp images. You can get sharp images with RAW or JPEG. If you're talking sports, you want the best shutter speed you can get. If you want sharp portraits, go for a prime lens and find its sweet spot in terms of aperture. Also, focus technique goes a long way. You want to nail focus every time. It takes a lot of practice. Next question is from Victor. Want to be my girlfriend? Well, Victor, frankly, you don't want that. I'm extremely high maintenance. Andrew, have you ever done a blooper reel for your vids? And what is your most memorable shoot and why? Well, here are some links to some videos where I have blooper reels at the end. Jack asks, phone number? Well, yes, I do. It's 858-876-2779. Definitely text, though. If you call, you'll just hear my recording. Sean asks, hi, SnapChick. I don't have all the technology needed to run a professional photo shoot. However, I am trying to develop a portfolio. If I am snapping pictures inside, any movement of the subject will blur. I understand that it directly relates to shutter speed. The problem is if I increase or decrease, I either get an over or underexposed finish. Any ideas to fix this with a shoestring budget? Sean, without knowing which camera you're using, I can't give you specific instructions. But indoors, you may either need flash or to increase your ISO setting. This will allow you to use a faster shutter speed and prevent the blur. Next is from Doug. If I'm shooting a concert and the show is using lasers, can the laser affect my camera if it goes through the lens and hits the sensor? I'm not going to say that they will hurt your camera, but I'm not going to say that they won't either. You're on your own with this one. I've never had a problem, but I'm not going to make any guarantees. Steven asks, what second cam should I get? D3 or D7000 or D600? All three, but then send two to me. Joseph asks, at what higher ISO will f4 lenses on digital cameras give excellent image quality? Don't need to use 2.8 lenses. And what is your favorite f-stop? Well, Joseph, it depends on the camera. Newer cameras can shoot at ISO 1600 and above with very little noise. I don't have a favorite f-stop. I do like working in available light though, even indoors, so I'm often at wide apertures on prime lenses. Lionel asks, what are the top tips for composition? Do's and do nots? Or how do you coach someone to pose for you to get a great shot when they say, I always look bad in photos? I hate it when that happens. But I don't believe in do's and don'ts. Everyone has their own style. One person's do is another person's no, 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 you're doing it all wrong. Marco says, are you single? So want to get married with me? Sorry, Marco, but no thank you. Greg asks, how about what's the best type of tripod out there for real mobile people? And maybe people who have light and heavy cameras in use. I always have this conundrum when I travel. 15-pound camera, but I do not want to haul my 40-pound tripod. Need something light and strong. What are the recommended head designs and options? Well, Greg, I'm the best light and strong tripod. And you don't even need to haul me. I walk on my own. Sometimes I make a break for it, though, with all of your expensive camera equipment. So use me at your own risk. Juan asks, do you remember where did you take your first photo? Not really. Definitely when I was a kid. It was probably a picture of my feet. Wes asks, has the instant gratification of digital photography affected the way you shoot? Assuming that you have gone through the rigors of film photography and the, setup and final product procedures and such. What? Oh, Wes, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. Brent asks, you could give helpful tips on how to tether your camera/computer. I've messed around with tethering, but not for anything serious. I like having the camera in my hand with no wires or anything coming out of it. Matt says, what's the best way to take a photo of rainfall? I like to get up close when it's raining, whether it's a leaf or the ground, and if the lighting is right, you can find some great reflections too. Julius asks, best mid-priced wide-angle lens for DX? I use a few kit lenses all the time for wide angle. Now, if you're talking ultra wide though, check out the Nikon 12-24 DX. Todd, suggestions for cameras/lenses when coming in from cold weather to prevent condensation. This isn't something that I deal with a lot in the desert, but what a lot of people do though is to put the camera in a plastic bag in the cold weather and then bring it inside in the bag and let the temperature of the camera slowly adjust. Tony says, do you know the recipe for key lime pie? Oh, sorry, wrong Facebook. Well, Tony, I do have a recipe for key lime pie, and here it is. Tony does have another question. It is, what's the best way to shoot fast-moving objects? Well, you want to become the master of focus for fast-moving objects. Know how to set your camera for it, and then practice, practice, practice. Brendan asks, what is back focusing, and how do you easily fix it? Back and front focus is due to a camera and lens that aren't working well together. You might have a lens that back focuses on one body, but not another. Some cameras allow you to fine-tune focus in the menus, but an alternative is to send the camera and lens combo to Nikon or Canon, for instance, if that's what you're shooting, and they can make the precision adjustments for you. Ori asks, what backdrops do you prefer and what type of light meter would you recommend for a student? Well, I like roll paper, which I use a lot of on my site. However, don't hesitate to get out into nature and use the world as your backdrop. And light meters can be useful to nailing your lighting ratios in the studio, but I don't use one. Jad asks, something I've always asked and really wanted to know. How on earth do you get that editorial fashion lighting seen in magazines? I'm dying to find out because I can never achieve it with my strobes. Well, you need strobes, good modifiers, makeup, Photoshop, and more than anything else, practice. Bill, how much post-processing do you typically do in your photos? And what programs do you use? I do very little. I use different software depending on my mood though. For quick edits, I use Snapseed. For most of my work though lately, I use Aperture 3. Howard asks, time-lapse food photography with HDR. That sounds good, the food part anyway. If I did food time-lapse, the food would be gone right away. So, I don't know. Howard asks another question. Difficult models. Well, you know what? If I have a difficult model, I get a new model. James says, can you get me a good deal on the D800? Probably. Matt, best all-around lens? It totally depends on what you shoot. Philip, how about JPEG versus RAW? Philip, I'm not going there. Even bringing up the question will probably start World War III in the comments. Keith asks, when is it best to use strobes, flashes, and constant lighting? I like strobes when I need a ton of light. I like continuous lighting when I don't need as much light, but I'm experimenting and want to see the result as I tweak the setup. Blas asks, a person asked me to take photos for a party. He says he will pay for my job. How can I put a cost to my photos? I have no idea. This is the first time someone is offering me a job as a photographer. Well, first of all, congratulations. And second of all, I don't know, do what I do. Think about what you'd pay a photographer for the same kind of job, and then just double it. Paul asks, what was the best product of 2012 you bought and worst product? The best product was the D800. It has amazing clarity and a great build. Similarly, the worst product I bought was the D800. You know, it's slow for action. I'm still using my D300S for all-around photography and for fast action. The D800, though, is killer in the studio. I knew the strengths and weaknesses going in, but, you know, I still took the plunge. Toby asks, Some of us less fortunate aspiring photographers have more aspiration than money, like me, so we are limited to point and shoot cameras. Any suggestions on how to improve skills using point and shoots other than buying a new DSLR? Point and shoots are great. All the same basics apply. You know, a lot of point and shoots even have manual mode and a bunch of other modes. See what you can do to get off of auto mode and just, focus on that. Just focus on learning the basics. That's my suggestion. Tony, when are you going to review the new Nikon D5200 or D3200? Well, I'd be happy to review any camera tomorrow, but I have to have one to review, and I don't have either of those cameras. Eric says, hope I wasn't too late with this one. I just got the 3-light kit Linco Morning Glories. Love them, so worth the money. But what Kelvin temperature do you use? Whatever feels right, or the 5500K the bulbs give off? It depends on the ambient light situation for me. I usually do a manual preset white balance, at least for still photography. When I use them for video, really just the direct sunlight preset on my cameras works really well. So, Simon asks, hi SnapChick, I'm in Nagano, Japan with a couple other DSLR towers, I think, surrounded by snow. Any tips on what might be good to experiment with or things to definitely avoid? Well, dress warm and experiment with your metering mode. All right, that's all I have for now. Keep those questions coming.